All right, good morning and welcome. My name is Joe Martin. I am president of the board of directors for Mountain View Electric, and we are stoked to be here today. I'm here with our CEO, Jim Herron, and on behalf of the cooperative and all of our members and partners, I want to thank you for joining us. We're here today because we know the digital divide that separates communities. We serve in 8 different counties. We have about 5,000 square miles of service territory, and it's, we've got some urban and suburban around the city of Colorado Springs, and we have some very rural where I live. And so we are excited for this, and the majority of our members, of course, live in El Paso County, followed by Elbert and Lincoln. This is a big deal for us today, and we are just so excited to be here. This is a transformative announcement that will change both the Mountain View going forward and also will transform the lives of our members. In 1941, Mountain View was formed right here in the Black Forest Event Center. So we thought it was very apropos to hold this announcement here today. Over 80 years ago, they signed documents and Mountain View Electric was formed. Today we have over 50,000 members, over 60,000 meters across the 5,000 square mile service territory. And we are proud of our territory, we're proud of our members, and it seems fitting that as we celebrate 80 years as a cooperative, we are going to continue to enhance the lifestyle of our members. The COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent state and national directives will have a lasting impact on all of us, as a shared experience that none of us could have predicted. And while there were a lot of lessons learned, the importance of having access to reliable internet became strikingly clear. And as businesses transitioned from work at home and schools and students, it was very obvious that broadband in our service territory was lacking. Every one of our board members is supportive. As I said, we're stoked to get started. I see this project as a real opportunity for us to close the digital divide, and we are excited and can't wait to get started. Our communities have long suffered from lack of broadband equality. Access to the same speeds and capabilities as those in less rural areas, broadband is available across our service territory when we're finished, will be, and help close the digital divide. Broadband is the future, and we feel fortunate that our fiber journey and roadmap to the future. It will bring support by our state and local leaders who are invested in broadband and its impact on our region. So I guess the announcement is, if you haven't heard by now, is we are going to bring broadband high speed to every member in our service territory that wants it. This is quite an undertaking. It's a long construction project. Activities have already started. We're in the design phase, gathering information, and all of that kind of stuff. So we'll get into a little bit more of the particulars as the speakers come forward. But I also say that we probably at this point have more questions than we have answers. But we are going to try to handle that.
Welcome everybody here today, and we had one of these earlier over in the Black Forest, and of course I was 50 miles from home, so over there I was somewhat of an expert. Over here I'm just Jim. So anyway, thank you. Now I've been at Mountain View for about 25 years, and I think this is probably one of the more important days for Mountain View, and I think it's very important that for us to announce this type of a project. Mountain View started in 1941. In fact, the meeting that we had this morning was in the Black Forest community, their community building, and it was 80 years ago that a group of people gathered together and decided to form Mountain View at that particular building in that location. At that point in time when Mountain View was formed, we began to look for ways to improve the quality of life for the people in the area, and we've been doing that ever since. And our board, at each one of our board retreats, we look to see what is it that Mountain View could do to make it better to live in the rural area or to live in our service territory. And we've been talking about broadband for a long time. In fact, when I first moved to Lyman, one of the first meetings I had with Joe Kiley and a few other community leaders was to how in the world can we get broadband to the rural areas? And this was almost 25 years ago. We looked at all kinds of partnerships with different people, our different organizations, whether it was a telephone cooperative or somebody else, and what can we do? What role could Mountain View do to propagate this type of a project? As it turns out, a few months ago, or actually last summer, we started working with a company called Conexon, and we became associated with them whenever they were doing a study for our service territory to get some funding that was available through the Federal Communications Commission. And so we began working with them. That was last fall, and it has all come to fruition, and they actually they offered us a business plan, and this is the first business plan that basically would deliver fiber to the home to 100% of our membership and offer a business plan that where the economics paid out. So we're very excited about this. And Mountain View Service Territory is very, very unique. You can see it here on the map. It's the blue with the green background. And about 85% of our members or meters are within 5-mile radius of the city of Colorado Springs. It includes the town of Monument all the way down on the east side of Colorado Springs down to the town of Fountain. And we do serve both Monument and Fountain for the most part. But then from there, we go another 90 miles to the east. And then we're about 100 miles north and south on our service territory. So we cover a big, huge area. Now, since I've been here, I think we've added probably about 30,000 homes to that area. And it surprises me when I look back and see that the internet services or the broadband services that are being offered to those homes are basically the same ones that are being offered in Lyman. And for those that live in Lyman, we understand that we had a very difficult time trying to get our employees set up to work at home because the internet service was not available. In fact, it wasn't available at my home. I tried to do it and it wasn't available. So basically, the 30,000 homes that have been added in El Paso County have about the same quality of internet service that we have here. So that is one thing that surprises me. Now, this is a big investment for Mountain View. This is about a $190 million project that Mountain View is committing to. It will cover all of our members. And so it will take about 5 to 6 years to build this out. So it's something that it will take a while. One of the things I do want to make clear is that it does take a while to put this infrastructure in. And so from basically starting today, it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 months before we actually do hook up an internet customer. But we already have begun the process of starting the build out. In other words, right now we're doing the engineering, and we will begin that process, and the building will actually start in a few weeks. So, but the idea is to get fiber to the home to 100% of our members. And we are partnering with a company called Conexon. They have a company called Conexon Connect. Conexon Connect will actually be the company that the people will call. They will be the internet service provider. Mountain View will own the fiber. We will lease the fiber to Conexon, and then Conexon Connect will be the marketing arm of that. So, and so that we're very excited about this project and looking forward to it.
Joe, Jim, thanks much. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I consistently rely, and I'm never let down by Mountain View, but I rely on Mountain View for two things, and that is when I flip the light switch on, the lights go on in my house, and I appreciate that. That's reliable. But another thing I rely on that's consistent is I get this dividend check back consistently as well. And I am looking forward now to relying in the future, the near future hopefully, through the joint venture with Conexon, to rely on Mountain View for my internet service. I've got decent internet where I live, but it's not great, certainly not at the level that what you're anticipating you'll be providing, and I look forward to that. I was told to prepare a 45-minute speech. I tend to run a little bit long, but I'm going to try and limit it. But I do want to add a little bit of context, and I want to talk a little bit about why this is so important to us as a society, and why this is so important to us as a community, and quite frankly, what the state is doing and how we're participating in this at this point. And quite frankly, as a freedom-loving, small government Republican, I'm going to talk about how the state is not and should not be participating in this, and I'm grateful for entities like Mountain View to step up and bring business services to individuals. So we rely today for many aspects of our life, but increasingly our work, I can't do my job anymore without connection to the internet. Broadband is very, very important to me. And the experience we have in that work environment is increasingly rich. It's requiring more and more breadth to that broadband, more upload, download capacity. We do more things in video now, and that requires more bandwidth. It's true for all of us. Students especially, and the pandemic showed us many of the challenges we have in our public education system, and it also showed us the value that can be brought from broadband, and high upload, high download speed helps us with that. Another place where we're consistently seeking to drive down costs is with healthcare. Oddly enough, telehealth and broadband internet can help us reduce costs dramatically. And I think that's a very important part of what we can have as a society. The problem is Colorado is largely a rural state. And most people don't necessarily think of Monument, the Black Forest as rural, but frankly, it is really very rural in its nature. The distance between houses isn't like the distance between houses in downtown Denver, where they're stacked in apartment buildings or condominium buildings. We are on acreages. Sometimes we are very distant from our next neighbor, and that's expensive to get that connection, that last mile out to everyone. So the challenge is we don't have complete broadband coverage. In 2018, Colorado set a goal of having 92% rural coverage by June of 2020. Coverage is defined, and Conexon beats the socks off of this, but coverage is defined as 25 megabits up and 25 megabits download and 3 megabits up. Conexon will be significantly more than that. The FCC estimated in 2020 that we were just about to that goal. We were 91.8%. In El Paso County, 98% of the rural areas covered, but with only one provider. In El Paso County, 82% of our rural area has 2 providers. And the competition, and this is where it becomes very, very important, the competition that an operation and an effort of this nature will bring into that environment is very helpful for all of us. It will restrain costs, and it will increase the value of the service we receive. So part of the solution is, and for my colleagues from the other side of the aisle, my Democrat colleagues, they think that government is the solution to everything, but I will tell you, government can be helpful at times like this, and we had one piece of legislation that came before us in this last legislative session that I voted for, House Bill 1281, that adds $75 million into potential grants, and it creates an office of the broadband office inside the Office of Information Technology. So there's $35 million that will be available through the Digital Inclusion Grant Program, and $35 million in that Office of Broadband. and, or at DORA, the Department of Regulatory Affairs. And there's another $5 million that will be available through the Interconnectivity Grant Program over the Department of DOLA, D-O-L-A. So now what I've said to the good folks here at Mountain View Electric is there's $75 million here for the entire state of Colorado that's going to be parceled out in grants. Please let us help you get access to as much of that as you would find need for. But let's be clear, Mountain View Electric is committing to make a $190 million investment into this program, and that's just for the Mountain View area. The state of Colorado can't afford to, nor would it be appropriate for the state to seek to develop broadband. And so what is happening here today is so very important in many ways. It will speak to people's lives, to the customers of Mountain View Electric, and provide to them a service that is meaningful to them. But it also honors a principle that is so important to America. And that's this principle of self-reliance, this principle of free markets, this principle of investing and providing value in a way that will attract customers to what you're doing. And I am grateful for and I honor the leadership of Mountain View Electric. Joe, Jim, the entire board, thank you for what you're doing for our communities. Thank you for bringing this in service to the people of El Paso County and the 8 or 7 other counties that you serve. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing.
So I'm glad to be here. Obviously, House District 19 represents all of eastern El Paso, which is a bulk of where the rural aspect of El Paso resides, whether it's Rama or Calhan or Peyton, all the way down to southeast El Paso where Rush is. I mean, House District 19 is a very diverse community, to include Black Forest and Falcon and Monument as well. And so to be able to talk here a little bit about the impacts of what broadband means truly for the rural community, I think is absolutely important. Senator Lundeen highlighted Senate Bill 1289, which did do significant work in creating access for grants for vendors to connect with in order as they expand broadband to the rural portions of the state. 1109 is another one, House Bill 1109. That was the Broadband Board changes to expand broadband service. So both of those were pretty influential bills as we look at broadband specifically and the connectivity to the rural portions of Colorado. There are 3 areas in which when I take into consideration the rural impact of broadband, and I like to talk about these in order of probably their importance, and I'll start with the telehealth piece. You know, on the heels of COVID, the health impacts that the community has seen as a whole, and these aren't just necessarily those that are going in for routine care as they approach their journey and they navigate that path to successful recovery with cancer. There's also that aspect where it's mental health now, and there has been a huge impact as a result of COVID, not just to the adults in our community, but also to the children in our community as well. And absolutely, I totally believe that the telehealth aspect, reaching into the rural aspects of the community and the ability for those residents to access their health and connect on that front through telehealth is just monumental, and the impact that that has for the rural portions of El Paso and for Colorado is huge. Education is next. Education means a lot. It opens up opportunities, and choice in education is something that I'm a strong advocate for. So whether that's just a continued education, you've graduated high school, now you're not sure if it's college, maybe it's a certificate program. There are a lot of certificates that you can pursue through the internet, and if you don't have the connectivity, that opportunity is not readily available to you as it is in more of the metro areas. Also degrees, whether that's your AA degree, whether that's your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, just continuing education that a lot of professionals need in order to maintain their license or certificates that they already have. Education is the door to which opportunity opens and allows us to put food on the table. Those are probably the 2 biggest, but I think commerce is also a big piece of that as well. And when I look at commerce, commerce can be anything from the professional engineer that may be able to do their CAD drawings and then deliver those across the internet, or it might even be that family that is looking to explore opportunities in cottage food and then expand those opportunities and try and increase where they can sell those goods and those wares. And the internet and broadband is a significant piece of making that available and allowing for folks to not just embark upon a hobby, but actually embark upon a profession that will not just keep the lights on, but will also put food on the table. And so whether it's telehealth, whether it is education, or whether it is commerce, those are the three biggest areas that I can think of when I think of broadband and the impact that it can have on the rural aspects of not just El Paso, but also the state of Colorado as a whole. I look actually at broadband as probably no different in today's time than asphalt is. It is very much, in my opinion, the digital roads and bridges through which commerce, education, healthcare access, even connectivity with family from across the United States and around the globe. Having been a deployed service member, I can tell you that I struggled with my connectivity in Afghanistan trying to make Christmas work, but even for service members on their deployment and everything else, the ability to connect with family, even as we reflect upon COVID, the ability to connect with friends is absolutely critical in maintaining a positive outlook on everything around us. And so as I look at rural El Paso and as I look at the rural portions of Colorado, I think that the broadband impacts and opportunity that are there are just monumental, and my hat is off to Mountain View Electric for all of it that you are doing to increase that service to the residents in rural El Paso. It allows them, and rural Colorado, but it allows them to actually maintain a lifestyle that is a beautiful lifestyle, that a lifestyle that a lot of people have sought out, and it just opens up more opportunity and more doors for them. So my thanks to Mountain View Electric for everything that you are doing to make this available to your members, and I look forward to the future, which I think is very, very bright as we look at broadband and the implications of what that can mean for families across El Paso and rural portions of Colorado.
I am just so grateful to be a part of what is going on here today. From the moment that I found out about this announcement, I was just thrilled for what it was going to bring to our local community. As the world changes and technology changes, as we've already heard, it is nearly impossible to keep up in this world without the kind of high-speed internet access that much of our community is missing. From job opportunities, educational resources, telehealth, and more, it is essential to our families in rural El Paso County. The El Paso County actually has a broadband plan, some of you may or may not be familiar with. And when I started to look at what Mountain View Electric was going to be offering to its membership, I realized they are literally going to nearly complete the plan that we thought would take considerably longer in a much shorter period of time. And that's, as Senator Lindeen mentioned, that's not something that government necessarily can or should do. And so we are so grateful for you taking on this, this challenge in El Paso County. Bringing the very affordable lightning fast speeds of fiber to our residents in unincorporated in El Paso County is going to be life-changing, and I cannot wait to be a part of it. I'm grateful that you have included us in your announcement today. You guys have been a community pillar for a very long time. Just as Senator Lundeen and Representative Geithner mentioned, I too have wonderful service from Mountain View Electric, and I know that the trust that you have earned in our community through providing fabulous service is going to serve you well as you take on this new endeavor. So again, I just want to say thank you for including El Paso County. I know I look forward to helping in any way that I can in this, as you guys make progress in this, and I'm just so thrilled for our community and the life-changing, truly life-changing opportunity that you are providing for our residents. Thank you.
I represent 9 counties in House District 64, all over eastern and southeastern Colorado. And I'm really excited to be here watching your rural electric cooperative partnering with an internet provider and looking into the future. Because we know, and we've learned based on this COVID-19 experience that we've had, that we have so many shortcomings even in the urban corridor, but also, and more importantly to me as a rural legislator, all across rural Colorado. I will tell you that we worked on a lot of state legislation. We tried in every case, and I supported in every case, everything we could do to build the broadband network out into rural Colorado. I will tell you that you here in this map over here have you cover 4 of the 9 counties in my House district, and that's significant. And more importantly, you're reaching out away from Colorado Springs and coming out into eastern Colorado and making a commitment to people out here to put in fiber. And that's a game changer. We need to do that across the state. And I'll explain in a little bit why that's important. We know that when we went to this hybrid education model that we could not get the internet that kids needed, that parents needed, that all the kids needed. If you had 2 or 3 kids in the house, they're fighting over the internet, like they're fighting over the cookies on the table. So, that's a problem. But this particular project that you're working on with Conexon Connect here, when you put fiber in, and years ago I studied engineering and know a little bit about it, that changes everything. The throughput on fiber is so powerful, and it has a lot less limitations. So even looking 3, 4, 5 years out, I think it's amazing that you have that vision, and you've been able to partner in an economic model that actually works. I will tell you that the REA model, Rural Electric Associations, and that business model is an amazing model. And I think it proves out right here when you talk about this project. You've got Mountain View Electric Association working with an internet company, and you're going to do something that's never been done, that I know of. It's never been done in this state, to take an entire REA and put fiber in. So my hat's off to your vision, your leadership, and your foresight. Looking forward.
What I wanted to bring up first was how exciting this is for our community, as well as the other rural areas around Lyman, what it means to Lyman. I left Lyman in 1985, went to college, lived in Colorado Springs for 25 years. My wife was from a small town in eastern Colorado. Once we had a kid in middle school, we're like, we need to get out of this city. It's just too big. So found something to do out here in eastern Colorado to get home. And there's many more people like me. If we can get internet broadband service out to rural Colorado, you will see more people like me that find a way to be out here. If they have to go into their jobs along the Front Range, that still may happen a couple days a week, but they can still do their jobs from out here in this community and other parts of rural Colorado. So here's a story. My first oldest child went off to college this year, Kansas State University. We got ready to send him off to college. He met with his advisor. We're in a Zoom meeting deciding what he's going to take for classes. Zoom goes out, no internet service. So we're all flustered, don't have a good idea what he's going to be in first semester. Everything worked out. Came home for Thanksgiving. Kansas State University allowed those students to stay home after Thanksgiving. They could take their finals online. My kid wasn't staying home. He goes, I'm not going to take a chance on not having internet service when I'm taking a final. So he went back to his fraternity and had a good time, I'm sure. So those are the 2 things I really want to bring up. What has happened to me by finding a way to be out here. I was lucky enough to find a job that I didn't have to have that internet service or whatever and could get out here. But there's plenty like me that want to be out here, and this can make all the difference in the world. So thank you for letting me speak about that.
You know, it used to be once upon a time it was the rural electric cooperatives that were in the lead for economic development. And I have to say Mountain View Electric has a long history of that role in this community, and the support that they provide for our organization, for Lincoln County Economic Development, is huge. Jim's been our long-term president of the board and chairman of the board, and we just really appreciate all the support that Mountain View has brought to the helm. But nonetheless, this is an exciting time. We have talked about economic development. There is not one conversation you can have any time that doesn't talk about adequate broadband. Connectivity and development, you know, what used to be a novel thing, this cool thing called the internet, became maybe a luxury to transitioning, evolving into a desired need, and now it goes all the way to the essential utility status. It's gone far beyond the little novelty it used to be, and we all know and understand that. The business leads that we receive out of Denver through Office of Economic Development, International Trade, all have pretty substantial internet requirements. And for the first time, that will be one box in this area that we'll be able to check off to say, guess what? We're going to have enough broadband to take care of this industry sector or industry player that wants to come to our area. It's going to be a huge game changer. The recent experiences we've had, I was at a real estate social here recently. It was about 4 months ago. It was up at the coffee shop, and I had a chance to meet a young lady who just purchased a home in Chisholm Estates, which incidentally is an area of town that is way underserved. And she works remotely for a company that manufactures credit cards. And we had a great conversation. She loves Lyman. She loves the area. She loves being out here. But her internet solution is a wireless solution that is really, she said, I have to call it spotty at best. So here was a perfect, and that to me represented a perfect example of the kind of people we're trying to attract to a rural economy. We love to have those young working families. Those are your best demographics. They pay the most taxes. They also fill the schools. They also do all those things that we need for our rural economy, and this internet is critical. We all have seen, as Greg indicated, the COVID area time where we all had to work at home. I happened to sit over in Araba, and I'm on the service with Eastern Slope, Aztec, and my daughter was home finishing her bachelor's degree from Colorado State University, and my son was trying to finish his sophomore year in high school, Lyman School, and pretty quick they said, Dad, this isn't going to cut it. We got to get faster internet. Aztec had enough ability to bump us up, so I was able to get the house bumped up to 50 megabits per second, which is where we're at right now, and it's actually works really, really well. So I'm really happy, but it's all relative. When Jim talked about the conversation 25 years ago, I'd love to hear what kind of speeds we're talking about 25 years ago. Maybe it was 5 down and a half up, I don't know, but now we're talking at least 100 megabits per second. And then we go talk about gig and 2 gig, and who knows where that number is going to go. But we do know it's that fiber infrastructure that will be able to accommodate just about anything under the sun. So we're really excited about that. And I'd like to, you know, the mobility solutions that we've also find, now we're talking about mobile internet, the smartphones and all those things, which happens to be some folks' solution to their internet problem is to just go ahead and run their hotspot. But we also know from experience that those happen to be the highest cost per unit of data in the whole system. If we're talking about some of the rates that this great exciting project with Conexon is offering, it brings that unit of data so much more affordable. It'll be so much better for those families participating. The rural benefits of the cooperative system in rural America, of course, goes without saying. You know, the Lincoln County has benefited from all the early electrical build out between Casey Electric and Mountain View Electric. And of course, our communication friends with Eastern Slope Technologies. But Mountain View Electric, and I'd like to echo what Representative Holtorf said, this is a game changer. This is huge. And for Mountain View Electric to bring on this solution is exactly what the development doctor ordered. This is what we need. This is what we need for Lyman. This is what we need for all of the Mountain View areas. Despite all the other players in the internet, which aren't very many out this way, there are still holes out there that are yet to be filled. And we're really excited about this. to me, when you're talking about developing an economy, it's all about capacity. And when you're doing things, you're going to be looking at things, can this area handle it? And I noticed when you're talking about mobile internet or you're talking about fiber-connected solutions, it's all becoming a very fluid marketplace, and things are highly variable in that. But the whole concept over adequate broadband for economic development is that those areas that have the capacity will eventually, in my mind, see the growth. They'll see those future investments. And when we're talking about work-at-home opportunities and having location-neutral employment opportunities and entrepreneurship, all of a sudden the lines between what commercial internet needs to be and what individual home internet needs to be, that gets pretty blurry, because pretty soon you never know when it's that next Bill Gates or somebody in the basement developing that next industry. And having the fiber to every user of Mountain View Electric is truly exciting. And I hope it's going to continue to usher in a whole host of good things to come.
Thank you for the privilege to be here on behalf of Governor Jared Polis and Lieutenant Governor Diana Primavera, my boss, Executive Director Tony Neal Graves from the Governor's Office of Information Technology. This is a big deal. This is a tremendous investment, and it's for rural Colorado. Not all of you probably know my background, but I'm a fifth-generation Colorado native from the San Luis Valley. I took this job specifically because I'm focusing on rural broadband and rural development. I look at this as infrastructure, just like highways, roads, and electric. Broadband is the way of the future. It's a big part of our economy and our development. What we've seen since COVID, and it's a good thing that we're finally getting out of it, is that a lot of people have moved to Colorado. We've seen the growth in every single county. I was just speaking at Action 22 last week, and to hear from those county commissioners about what's going on with our infrastructure, our housing market, and all of our resources, it's a real big challenge. So it's a big deal that we're all stepping up, we're using our cooperatives, we're looking at rural, and we're trying to develop things like broadband and infrastructure for all. So I want to thank you all for this great investment, the opportunity to follow our tremendous great legislators, both of who have been very huge supporters of broadband at the state capitol, and I want to thank you so much for this investment.
Thank you for inviting us here today to be part of this exciting announcement. The Colorado Broadband Office celebrates the vision and the leadership evident in MVEA's decision to take on the heart of the investment for the next 100 years. Just like in 1941, when MVEA got its start, its commitment to its members to provide programs and services that traditional utility companies do not regularly provide. The MVEA board and leadership team decision to deliver fiber to the home embodies so many of the member-owned electric 7 cooperative principles, but none more so than autonomy and independence, education, training, and investing, the community and concern for community. With this decision, MVEA is investing in the economic autonomy and independence of the communities it serves, enabling education and training opportunities and embracing concern for community by ensuring that rural communities have access to technological innovations, allowing all to work smarter and not harder. Fiber to the home literally puts the world at our fingertips, providing options for how and where we work, learn, and receive medical care. In 1941, MVEA's founders turned the lights on. This investment will allow its members to ride the light, enabling possibilities the founders could only have imagined.
Thanks for inviting me here today. It's good to be back. I was here last week. I was here a week ago today, meeting with Carrie Geithner. Thanks for your time last week, and some of the members of the Mountain View Electric Association staff. As I drove back home, and I took the route that I prefer to take, which is a 4-hour drive. I like driving in the mountains. So I drove by Twin Lakes. I drove through Independence Pass, and as always, as I start to see the fluttering leaves of aspen trees, and I'm getting a little bit closer
to where I call home these days. Like most of you, when I drive in the mountains, I look at the mountains and I look at the trees. Probably unlike most of you, I spend an awful lot of time when I drive in the mountains looking at electric poles and transmission lines and distribution lines. They're beautiful. They're beautiful when you connect what they do. Not what they represent, but what they do, which is to make life possible throughout this beautiful state. I also look at electric poles for a different reason. I'm always looking to see the state of the poles, where you might put a fiber line, what it might take to change out a pole. And it is in this state an engineering marvel. When you think of what Mountain View Electric Association and the other electric co-ops were able to do over the past 80 years, and when you think of the equipment they had at that time, when you think of how dangerous it was to build electric networks throughout the state 80, 70 years ago, the risk that people took, the risk they took with their safety, the risk they took with their money, because the electric networks were funded by membership, donations, contributions, and loans from the federal government, and the risk they took in the unknown. These were by definition where electric lines were built across the country by electric co-ops. They were by definition places that no investor-owned utility, no municipal system, no one else was willing to invest their money. And those networks and the institutions that built those networks, they're the same institutions that are around today. Mountain View Electric Association, one of over 800 electric co-ops across the country, are largely the same community-based, membership-owned institutions that were founded in the 30s and 40s and have sustained their rural communities since that time. It is, as I say, it is a marvel for many reasons, not the least of which an engineering marvel. I always think when I talk to people about building fiber networks, and the only place my company builds fiber networks is rural America. I always think it's a little bit of a cheat what we do. We build places where no one else will build fiber networks. But we only build places where somebody before us built an electric network with less advanced machinery in more difficult circumstances. And what we do is we replicate the electric network that was built by our parents and grandparents. We put fiber on electric systems. We build from substation to substation, down every electric feeder from the beginning to the end. Our routes are already mapped out. We don't have to figure out where to go. Mountain View already figured out where we need to go. So I'm here in part to say we are thrilled to be working with Mountain View Electric Association and to thank the board, to thank Joe Martin, to thank Jim, to thank the others for their decision. Their decision, which is in many respects to reverse a decision, or it contrasts a decision made a decade ago by the federal government. This digital divide that you see printed on this poster board, that digital divide did not come about because of rural economics. That digital divide was a decision made by the federal government, a decision made a decade ago, a decision that followed with funding. It may be best not to spend public money on certain things, but the federal government spent close to $100 billion over the past 10 years on rural broadband, and you still have the digital divide. The reason isn't because there wasn't sufficient funds. The reason is that 10 years ago, the Federal Communications Commission decided that at a time when 100 megabit per second service was clear and apparent throughout the country in urban and suburban areas, that it would invest the public's money in 4 megabits per second. At a time when gigabit service was clear, deployed, apparent throughout urban and suburban America, the federal government decided to invest the public's money in 10 megabits per second service. 10 megabits down, 1 megabit up. And today, when we will deploy 2 gigabit service here throughout Mountain View Electric Association service territory, the federal government once again is investing in 25 megabits per second service. You can't keep investing the public's money in technologies that are in your rear view mirror. You have to invest in the future. In order to invest in the future, you have to invest in technologies that are going to last. So I, for one, applaud the directors for a future-looking decision. It isn't a surprise, though. The directors of the board of Mountain View Electric Association, like directors of boards of electric co-ops across the country, they have lived with the circumstance of no one else being willing to serve their communities. In the 30s, in the 40s, this repeats itself over and over again. Whether it was electric service, telephone service, cable television service, now fiber-based internet service, electric co-ops know one thing. They know if they're not going to do it themselves, nobody else is going to do it. Now, the decision by the federal government, decision by some state governments, would be the equivalent, I'll make one analogy and then I'll get right to the point. It would be the equivalent if you were to invest in, I think, Joe, you told me the other day you were speaking to me on a DSL line. So DSL, digital subscriber line, is a copper-based service. The telephone companies run fiber to digital subscriber line access multiplexers, and from there run copper. It would be the equivalent of an electric company stepping down its 120-volt service to 12 volts to serve rural areas, and then letting people in their homes decide which appliance to keep on and which to turn off, because that's what people do with 4.1, 10.1 megabit per second internet service. Funding fixed wireless, funding satellite, that would be the equivalent, as the government has done over the past 10 years, that would be the equivalent of giving people and installing in their home generators and telling them, here you go. We're not going to run an electric line, it's too expensive. We're not going to run an electric line, it's too hard to do. But we'll bring you a generator, and you can run that generator for yourselves. That's not what the board of MVEA has decided to do. They have decided to build a network the co-op way. The co-op way means that this fiber network will be owned by the members of the electric co-op, 100% owned. It means that every single member will have access to the same level of service, not gigabit service to some and 10 megabits per second service to others. The same high quality service to every single member that wants it. And they're investing in their own future. They're not investing in a technology that's only going to last for 3 or 4 or 10 years, and they'll have to come back and redo it all over again. It is appropriate that we're here where a decision was made, and the people who made the decision 80 years ago right here, they didn't know anybody was going to be back here 80 years from then. They didn't know it was going to be 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, but they were investing in themselves. And as I tell people all the time, when I make investments, I'm happy to invest in myself. And that's also a decision of the board. The electric network has lasted 80 years. It'll last another 80 years. The fiber network that we will build here will last as long as the electric co-op is here. It is a 30, 40, 50, 80-year transmission medium. Nobody yet knows how long fiber is going to last because fiber has never outlasted its life. So What we are going to build here is a network to 100% of the members capable of delivering 100 megabit per second symmetrical service, gigabit symmetrical service, and we will launch 2 gigabit service here. We will do so, and my business partner, Randy Clint, he launched the first gigabit service in rural America. And at the time, people, and it wasn't that long ago, but people asked him why he would do such a thing. What's the need for gigabit service? At the time he did so, I was working at the Federal Communications Commission, and I was talking about getting gigabit service to rural America. I was approached once by the Chief Technology Officer of the FCC, and he said, why are you contradicting our position that 4 megabits per second service is sufficient? He said, 4 megabits per second, you can stream a Netflix high-definition video with 4 megabits. And I said, sure, it works great if the only thing you do in your house with the internet is stream one movie and you have no other devices connected to the internet. I told him at the time, I said, I just met recently with the president of Bell Labs, who told me they projected that over the next few years there would be 10 devices connected to the internet per person per home. I recently looked at one of my Wi-Fi analyzers in my house, and I see I have 43 devices connected to the internet in my home. It's a lot for me and my wife and my teenage son, because it's a lot of different devices. It's no longer laptops and desktops or iPads. It's Ring doorbells and smartphones, and it's almost everything these days that has power can be and will be connected to the internet. One of my colleagues tells me the story, and I'll be quick about this. He said he came home one day and he saw 3 large boxes of laundry detergent on his front porch. And he couldn't quite figure out how, and he asked everybody in the house, and nobody had ordered the laundry detergent, and he figured it must be a mistake. And he went back to their laundry room, and he noticed, he said, for the first time that there's a button on the side of the washing machine. He said he'd never noticed it before. And he was talking to his daughter, and he said, I pressed that button, nothing happened. She said, I pressed it again, nothing happened, so I pressed it a third time. Nothing happened a third time, so I left. That button orders laundry detergent. You know, at least the washer dryers and our other machines haven't learned how to order for themselves, although that's coming too. Look, you build something to last. You build an electric network to last. You build a fiber network to last. I want to address sort of 3 groups of people who are here in the room quickly. First, the board. Thank you for your decision, and thank you for your decision to put your faith in us. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, I got a call from the CEO of an electric co-op in the poorest county in one of the poorest states in the country. And he said, John, I am just an old lineman. He said, I started in the electric business as a lineman, and I worked my way up, and somehow I ended up as the CEO of this co-op that I've been at for over 40 years. He said, I don't understand the technology you're talking about. He said, I don't know the difference between fiber and wireless, and I don't know, what a GPON network is, and I don't know anything about the architecture. He says, I don't know any of it. He said, but I know my community needs this. He said, I know that much. He says, I don't know if we can do it, but you tell me. He said, if you tell me that we can do this, I will put my faith in you. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever had somebody say something like that to them. It's really different when you get hired for a job or somebody pays you to do something. It's really different when they say to you, I'll put my faith in you if you do this. I paused before answering him because I wanted to make sure. I got back to him later that day. I said, we can do this. You could ask any employee of mine, anybody in my business, about that particular co-op project, and they will tell you that I've always treated that one as special. It's been a great project. It is a small area, a small, poor area of the country, and I'm as proud of that as anything I've done in my life. So I am thankful to the board for putting your faith in us. Second, to the members of Mountain View Electric Association, you know, y'all, I know the one question that will always be asked until the last fiber strand is put into that last home, which is, when will it come to us? This is a large system, 5,000 to 6,000 miles. We build as quickly as we can, as it is safe to do so. We usually build about 1,000 miles a year. In our business, that's really fast. We can build a little bit faster, but it takes time. It took decades to build the electric system. We intend to replicate the same system, the same routes, in just a few years. But everybody will know when it comes to them. That's the natural question. So for those of you who are fortunate enough to be in that first year, I just suggest a couple of things. First, when you see construction crews out, when you see people changing poles, when you see mainline crews, when you see install crews, drop crews, certainly talk to them, ask them questions, anything you want. Just pay a little bit of attention to their safety. Building fiber networks is a bit safer than building electric networks, but it's dangerous business. So pay attention to the safety of the people who are out working. If you see some cones on the street, don't get annoyed that it's slowing down traffic. Know that somebody's there working to try to improve your community. And then my last request to those of you who are public officials. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for being part of this. I spent a fair amount of time in my life making spending decisions with public money. So I just make two observations about my own past, which is, I always thought it best to invest in something that would last. If you're going to invest the public's money in broadband, invest in equipment, in technology, in those things that have a life of at least 30 years. You'll at least have a better chance then of investing in the future. And you know, also invest in the communities itself. As I mentioned, this network will be owned by the people who live here, the people who receive service. It's one of the reasons that electric co-ops have been sustained all these years. The people who live here own the network. Do the same thing with the public's money. The kind of, you know, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a lot of fiber and poles and boring machines. So I'll close with a personal observation and then turn it back over to Joe. I only work with electric cooperatives, and I hear often enough that, you know, co-ops, those that are building fiber networks, have a certain advantage. Poles and ducts and conduits and rights-of-way and bucket trucks and linemen, a membership organization, an ability to borrow money from RUS or their own institutions, CoBank, CFC, all of that is correct. Now I'll tell you the real reason I think that co-ops engage in these projects. It has to do with memory. The memory of a time when no one else would come and build an electric network in parts of the country. A memory of hard times, and a memory of what you do in hard times, which is first you help yourself, and then you help your neighbors. Memory is a gift. With memory there is wisdom, and wisdom yields strength. With strength, there is hope. And with hope comes renewal and ultimately redemption. I myself have found redemption in the hills and hollers of Appalachia, in the high plains of Oregon, in the Mississippi Delta, and here in the Colorado Rockies. What I do for a living, what I intend to do for a living, is help other people. This is the way I know how to help people. And I invite all of you to get involved in this project, because this, at least in a small way, will help you all help yourselves, help your neighbors, help your friends, help your strangers, help each other. Thank you very much again for inviting me. God bless.
Mountain View is excited and honored to be working with Conexon and Conexon Connect as we put this project together, and we really are looking forward to connecting our first members. So thank you to all who are here, and thank you for your support, and we look forward to getting this project going.